So we're back with another round of best bets. These are artists that have reached out to me personally through my different social media channels. I'll leave those down below. Mainly it's been through email. So if you have a band that has released a full-length album, drop me a line down in my email address and I'd love to check it out. Things that I'm trying to do this year is every month to do one of these best bets where I feature 4 of some of the best that have reached out to me. So we're going to dive into the next batch of the 4 best ones, and I'm really excited to talk about some of these. And the first one that we have up is Modulo Zero with their debut album of Undefined. And this one, I had listened to the first half of this album a couple of times, and the best way that I could put an album like this is that it's a very like late evening red wine type of an album where there's not a whole lot of like real perch, but there's a lot of really great movements on it. It's got a little bit of a jazz feel to it, but it's very like undefined, which actually works really well with the title. From the beginning of Frequency Undefined all the way down to Primal Numbers. It's this blending of jazz, of instrumentals, but also with like this kind of computer jazz as well. And it's very unique in that sense. Like it's not crazy avant-garde jazz fusion. It's much more of a subdued kind of just impressionistic type of jazz. But then after we had Primal Numbers, we come into By the Banks of the Muddy Waters. And pretty much right from that track all the way on, the album does a complete 180 shift into much more of a almost like a singer-songwriter, very much utilizing the acoustic guitar, and it is a little jarring, and at times it does kind of feel a little bit like throwing everything on the wall and seeing what sticks, but both are handled very well. So it's really an interesting album to get into because there are so many different facets to it and so many different ways of interpreting it. One of my favorite tracks is probably To Seek the Sun, which is much more of like a Gilmour style ballad. Like we're thinking of something from like Obscured by Clouds or even from metal, from like the Pink Floyd kind of a style. Very like slide guitar, very folky in that sense. And this had come off of like, say, something from like Saucerful of Secrets, if we're keeping the Pink Floyd kind of analogy going on. Overall, it was an enjoyable listen, one that you kind of have to be in the right frame of mind to really get into because of just how many different styles are being tackled here. Moving forward, if Modulo Zero or Modulo, if Modulo Zero continues on, I would recommend, if you're going to continue this kind of an idea, maybe make it into a double album. Have the first side be that very impressionistic jazz work, and that second album being much more of that folk singer-songwriter kind of an idea, just to have a little bit more of a definitive break between genres. Because both genres are handled very well, it's just we need a little bit more of a clean break between the two. I would still recommend checking it out. They're on Spotify. I've left the link below to check them out. Really, really fantastic work. So next up is Hazpiq, and I think that's how you pronounce these guys. I'm really bad with pronunciations, as you already know. And yeah, these guys are definitely not making it easy for me. Cephiad is the album. Again, not making it easy. It's all right, keeping me on my toes. And this album actually blew me away. I love this album. It's a fantastic metal work. The female vocalist on here is just brilliant. The command that she has within the vocals provides such gravity to it that I just can't really put to words properly. So haunting and soothing. Like the entire album is just hauntingly beautiful. From start to finish. Like there's no low point on it. The only thing that I can possibly say as a low point on this is that some of the songs do bleed a little too much into one another. There isn't a whole lot of differentiations between movements. There is a lot of, you know, very close to center essentially on this album, but other than that, this album just, again, blew me right out of the water. It does hug a little bit to like a sludge metal type of a thing, but the thing that puts these guys ahead of a lot of sludge metal is that you don't really have that really muddy mix. Like everything is very crystal clear within the mixing on this, and it shows to such a great advantage. Like you don't need to sound like you're being played through water to make it sound heavy within a sludge metal. Clear example of this is the last track of Theory of Everything. It reminds me very much of the last track from Leviathan from Mastodon, and these guys know how to build up a song to such a point and then just not let it go, and it was just so fantastic. Yeah, this album was a real treat. Highly recommend it. 2 huge thumbs up for this group. Really look out for them because I know that they're going to be making a really big splash, and I just can't wait to see what they have in store. Such a great album. I can't praise it more. Just really check it out. So next up, we have a drummer kind of solo work, and I was really excited about this, honestly. He reached out to me, and he's got a number of different projects, and I wanted to focus in on his solo work, and I believe it's pronounced Shmu. I could be mistaken. It's S-H-M-U, Shmu. And the album that I listened to that I really tickled my fancy was Lead Me to the Glow. This is just that really improvised, jazzy kind of an idea. And I wanted to capture a little bit more of a jazzy movements on this, and Lead Me to the Glow really tickled that little jazz movements on there. I really like the drumming on here because it's really the entire core of the whole album, obviously because it's his solo work. It really showcases what the guy is able to do. His drumming style is really on point. I really enjoyed it. But the one thing that I will note is just I never really found myself 100% invested in a lot of the work. I didn't feel like there was like a really, like the musicianship was really tight and everything that was being played was really good, but there wasn't like that moment that really like stood out to me. I listened to this album a handful of times, and each time I was like, I really enjoyed it while I was in it, but there wasn't a whole lot of like pull. There wasn't a whole lot of like really oomph into it. There was a lot of like wandering around, just trying different things, and in that sense it was really fun. But I feel like there needed to be just a couple of things that kind of rooted a song into place that we could play around. But I mean, other than that, it's a really fun, jazzy, impressionistic style of music, and if you're into that kind of thing, I would definitely give it a spin. It was a really fun time. I just wish that it had a little bit more. That's all I can say. Finally, the last artist that I'm going to cover is Lunear. Many Miles Away. These guys actually sent me their physical discs, so there's one way you can definitely get onto this is by sending me your physical copy of your CD. Lunear's album, Many Miles Away, it was a really interesting work. It feels like this was kind of the next step in neo-prog, because there's a lot of moments on here that do feel very neo-prog-esque in their playing styles, especially within the vocalizations, but taking it into a little bit of a different direction. Like, it doesn't follow suit so much of the neo-prog, because out of all of the progressive rock subgenres, I find that neo-prog is the most rigid in style and very afraid to kind of try anything new. And I feel like Many Miles Away is a really good next step. It still kind of holds on to a few of the tethers from the genre, but they're trying it in a different way. And a lot of these songs are really good. Like, for instance, the song Don't Be Scared is just brilliant. Like, you guys need to be applauded for this song. It is just fantastic work. It builds up in the perfect way. It adds a lot of different sound effects to it, which really creates a lot of tension within the build. And once it's finally into such a really fun build, we get into that play out near the halfway mark. And it's that play out that, again, builds upon itself on its way out. It doesn't just play itself out, it actually builds upon itself as it goes through. If I were to give these guys any kind of voice of like encouragement as well as some something to work on, is definitely the lyrics and the songwriting. A number of these songs, such as Just Another Song About That Girl, Heaven, So Many, You Owe Me Nothing, you guys, it can move from the melodramatic all the way into the corny, and I know that neo-prog does have that flirtation with the melancholy and just a little bit of the overdramatics, but you do run the risk of going a little step further and it becoming a little corny. And there were a number of times, especially within the lyrics, that it did start to inch into that, so just tighten up the songwriting ship. Think about it as like writing good literary poetry as opposed to writing just straight up poetry. The music itself is fantastic. That play out with the keyboards and the guitars, you're able to blend the two very well. You know, you're not just letting the keyboard shine through, you're not just letting the guitar shine through. It's really a dance between the two instruments, and being able to utilize both of those in such a way was a fantastic treat. So those are it. Those are my 4 recommended best bets of February. If you have a band and you want to try to get showcased for March's edition, drop me a line. Best way is through email, but you can also hit me up on Twitter. You can hit me up on Instagram, and I think that's really the only ways that you can get in touch with me. I mean, you can try Facebook, but it hasn't gone all that well. I know a lot of people have reached out to me on Facebook, and I try to keep on top of it, but yeah, unfortunately, it just gets lost in the fold. And that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.